Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the Grit and Equity podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. I'm so thrilled to be here with you this week. I hope you are knocking it out of the ballpark, that you are gritty, things are lining up for you, and that you are just the rock star of the week in whatever your field. So, with that said, welcome. I want to make some announcements for you guys first. First things first, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on X Factor EDU Network, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and it can be found on Spotify. Now, have you checked out the X Factor EDU Network yet? Why not if you have not? I highly recommend that you go there and check us out. There's so many podcasts, plethora of knowledge, there are books, there's all types of support for you as an educational leader, as a business leader, that you can just find that support and use that to help you continue to rock it out in your respective fields. Now, I also want to remind you to follow me on Facebook, which is going to be Miss India White. Follow me also on LinkedIn, The India White. Twitter is Indy Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube channel is India White 123. And my TikTok channel is Dr. India White. And so my threads is Indy238 as well. I hope that you guys have been able to follow me on the respective platforms that's best fit for you. Thank you to those that were welcoming me at the Wisconsin Math Council Conference. We had a blast. I've connected with so many of you, and you've been asking me to come back through. So continue to follow up with me to let me know how we can continue to collaborate. I had a blast with everyone there. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you to the team. Y'all are amazing. I also wanted to have you guys check out my website when you get a chance, www.india-white.com, for blogs, books, and to schedule me for a speaking event, a coaching event, a PD, whatever it is that you're wanting. I'm here for you. I also wanted to remind you guys of some opportunities where I'll be out speaking in different events. The next event that we've got coming up is definitely an amazing Sabbath conference in Vegas. It will be at the end of the month. I'm honored to do that on behalf of Sabbath and Represent. I will also make plans to be at FCTM this June in Florida to present at that conference. Also, I hope to see many of you at the Camps Conference in Texas in July. In September, we will be going to NCTM and NCSM together. And in October, I'm honored to be a featured speaker back in Iowa. Round 2 or 3. Let's do this again, guys. I'm so grateful. Can't wait. Super excited. Now, if you're coming on this podcast for the first time, you're like, okay, what is this chick going to talk about? Basically, if you are having problems closing the achievement gap, or you're having classroom management issues, or your students just aren't motivated to do the work, then this is the podcast for you, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast. Like I said, you can find it on Spotify, share it with your friends, your administrator friends, whoever, and keep in touch with us. We love connecting with you guys, and I'm so thankful for each of you. I also wanted to remind you and make the announcement again, the Grit Mini Workshop has launched on the Grassroots Workshop website. Thank you, Robert and team, for this amazing opportunity. Check it out when you get a chance. It's called How to Harness Grit to Help Students Thrive. So go ahead and check us out. Now, on this particular podcast, I wanted to talk with you guys about overcoming a fear of grit. So why am I talking to you about this? Because I have found that in my conversations with leaders, students, and whatnot, there's actually a fear of being too gritty, and that fear is tied to other fears. And so we're going to first break down what is grit again for those that are new. So the queen of grit, Dr. Duckworth, she says that grit is the passion and perseverance to obtain long-term goals. Okay, she talked about that. She coined that in her book titled Grit. You can get it. She had that in 2016. Okay, so I came up with an acronym for all of us to remember grit, which is great resilience in time, right? So the more resilience you have over a shorter amount of time, the more grit you have. So that is what grit is in a nutshell. Now, why would people be afraid of grit? So let's just have some conversations. Let's talk about this. And let's talk about why would people need to overcome a fear of grit? Well, let's be honest. Some people are comfortable, right, with their life goals. They're comfortable with what they've accomplished. And when you have grit and you're doing great things, that means that you just might be successful. You just might write that book, for all you book writers out there. You just might launch that business. You just might get the results you want. If you're, seeking a relationship, you just might get in a relationship. Like, OMG, life can actually happen for you if you're gritty. And some people are afraid of that. Some people would rather just talk about what success looks like and what their fantasies are and keep it as this close but not tangible enough fantasy dream without it ever coming into fruition. And I'm going to share a story. Okay. So when I first wrote my first book, and I've written like 46 books, 47, something. When I first wrote my first book, it's titled How to Overcome Obstacles from Your Past, right? I had a burden to write this book because I felt like there were so many issues that people deal with, and it's just not fair for them to have to tackle all this by themselves without having some type of guidance. And I felt that I was an expert because I had been through so many different things. I had so many traumas that I had to overcome, and I had counseling, and I was able to get through things. So long story short, I wrote the book, and the book, I thought I was going to just have one book. Well, after writing for like pretty much like a whole year, I turned it into my publisher, and it turns out the book was 900 pages, double spaced. And when they formatted it, it actually turned into 4 solid volumes, right, of a book. We were all like, oh my word, we had to organize this. And this was back when I was pregnant with my son. So you can imagine this is like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had a good product, but I wasn't convinced that people would give me a chance, or because I was a math person and I wasn't necessarily an English grammar person. Like, that wasn't what my degree was in. So I was afraid of success because I thought it would bring out the critics. So long story short, guess what? I get the book published. The books arrive. I take the books, and at the time, I was in my apartment, and I put the books, brand spanking new, in the corner of my room because I was so afraid. And they lived in the corner of my room for 3 months because I had a fear of success and I had a fear of failure. What if this actually works? Like, what if people actually see me as someone that can give them advice? I can actually be a life coach. I could actually be, a counselor or someone that can help people with my story. And so it's like when you first have a baby, you don't know how people are going to see your baby, if they're going to think your baby is cute or, what they're going to say, but that's your baby. So you're protected. So that's kind of what I was feeling about the books. And I remembered, just having some prayers and some conversations. I felt very impressed. Like, the creator of my life, the universe, just kind of was letting me know, like, you need to get those books out of the corner of your room and you need to go sell those books and help people. And so I did. And so now, book 46 later, I look back at that and I'm like, wow, what if I would have stopped short because of that fear? I don't know that I would have been able to contribute to so many other projects and awesome book collaborations and really have supported people and so many other audiences because of a fear of failure and a fear of success. And so I wanted to share that story because I understand that fear happens, and fear of success happens, and fear of failure happens, right? That's why people are afraid to start the business, because they're like, well, businesses fail within 5 years. Why should I even try? But I want to encourage you, and I know we're talking about education. I want to encourage you that no matter what you're doing in life, continue to stay gritty and execute anyway, and take a risk on success anyhow. Like, what if you're successful? Guess what? Great. And so with that said, I'm going to now transition and talk about what happens when we do master grit. When you do master grit, you overcome that fear of success. You overcome a fear of failure. You stick to your commitments, and you also hold yourself accountable. This is what happens when you are able to overcome a fear of grit, a fear of doing too much, a fear of being productive, a fear of actually attaining those goals. I want to encourage you and say it is not a bad thing on your life because you're accomplishing those positive goals that you set for yourself. So speaking of goals and being successful, I want to show off this rock star student who I think she's starting to go viral. her story is amazing. So this girlfriend here, she decided to get 3 degrees in 2 years as a 17-year-old. Did y'all read this? 17-year-old girl earns 3 degrees while in high school, okay, in 2 years. So she graduates with her master's degree. What in the world, right? This is an example of grit. This is an example of being gritty, and I'm happy that she was able to really calculate her steps and take the appropriate courses. She obviously is gifted, right? So obviously they catered to her equitably to where she was ready for those advanced courses and she was granted them. So now look, we have a woman here, or not even a young girl, teenager, that has obtained 3 degrees at age 17. Go ahead, girl, right?
About a Tuscaloosa teen named Leanna Roberts. She's only 17 years old, and she's going to graduate from the University of Alabama this weekend with a master's degree.
That's right. You heard that correctly. She's 17 years old. Brian Henry joins us now from West Alabama. Brian, this is a parent's dream.
Very much so, Jen and Jonathan. Leanna Roberts had no secret method, no silver bullet. She decided long ago to do well in academics, and she credits her parents. Leanna Roberts stood in front of Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it dawned on her what tomorrow, and she credits her parents. Leanna Roberts stood in front of Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it dawned on her what tomorrow will bring, a realization she's accomplished so much in just 2 years.
Looking back 4 years ago when I started high school, I would never have imagined. This was never a plan that I had or something that I saw in the cards for myself.
The cards fell in her favor. Roberts graduated from Central High School in Tuscaloosa at 15 years old. And on that very same day, she earned an associate's degree in science from Shelton State Community College.
When I started the 9th grade year, I knew that I wanted a challenge, and I began taking dual enrollment courses at Shelton State Community College.
And that's not all. Leanna Roberts entered UA as a junior and earned her undergraduate degree in biology at 16 years old. On Saturday, Roberts will walk on stage to receive yet another degree.
A master's in business administration with a healthcare management concentration.
And she's only 17.
Yeah, so I think from an early age, my parents really poured into me. I always had a love for reading.
Roberts did admit when she enrolled at Alabama, she found the learning more challenging, but overcame it by simply driving through it head first.
I really had to buckle down, reevaluate, and learn different study habits.
Did it ever? 6 chords signifying a well-rounded person on her academic journey.
Another one is for the MBA Society.
And the learning won't stop. Leanna Roberts continues her schooling in June, another master's to conquer at UAB.
And that's what makes us unique.
Through it all, Leanna Roberts says she's never lost sight of one thing, and that one thing, she says, really isn't a secret to turning the page to greatness.
Well, find out what really suits you, what gets you going, and chase after that.
Leanna Roberts has it all mapped out. She plans to graduate with that second master's in 2025, and then it's on to medical school. In West Alabama, Brian Henry, WBRC.
Absolutely amazing clip of that young girl accomplishing such a great task of getting a master's degree. Kudos to her and to her family that were there. Very gritty parents. I just think that's amazing. They need to really have the stage and talk to people about how to, help their children be college and career ready. But, I wanted to play that for us just to kind of remind us of it's okay to be successful. Now, she's 17 years old. There aren't many children in her league, in her lane, that can relate, right, to her. But that doesn't mean that she still can't be a student and enjoy her peers and to, have that social experience. She decided to be gritty despite, maybe having a little bit of isolation or working, solely on her own, for those classes when the rest of her friends are working on, grade K-12 work, and rightly so. So I think that, this little girl or this young woman, this young lady is an example of being gritty and what it really takes to stay gritty so that you can be successful. Now, I want to also talk about different types of grit and how you can develop grit, as you're trying to also overcome your fears. So there's a couple of different types of grit. I found this really cool blog here. So there's one, the grit to persevere. So Duckworth has spoken about this, of course. And it talks about how also Kotler says the grit to persevere is made up of 3 psychological subtraits: your willpower, your mindset, and your passion. Again, willpower, mindset, and passion. Now, let's keep moving. Let's keep reading. So it says here, when you're looking at willpower equates to your self-control, and seeing why it's very essential, right, to develop that when you're trying to have a grit of perseverance. It allows you to direct your thoughts, emotions, and attention in intentional ways. When we use willpower, we stay focused on the task at hand. We delay gratification. That's huge. We stifle impulses, saying no to dessert. Help me on that one. We resist the urge to hit the snooze button. Yeah, that's real. Our teenage students and our teenage kids can use that. And we also push ourselves further than otherwise inclined to go, running that extra mile, working out an extra hour, or even working an extra hour. We've written extensively about willpower. So they're talking about what they're talking about regarding willpower here. They say some things to do here. Do your most difficult tasks first. That's very interesting. So it says, while scientific research has been mixed as to whether willpower is a finite resource, everyone knows from lived experience that it decidedly is. So the more willpower and the more exercise that you have for like self-control of one task, the less you'll have for others. That's interesting, right? So tackle them at the start of the day when your proverbial willpower meter is full. I do find that at the beginning of the day, I don't know if you guys are morning birds or if you're like night owls. I'm a morning bird. But if you're a morning bird, you tend to get so much more done. And there's something about just where everything just clicks in your mind, and it's just, you just can spit out so much, right? Nothing against being a night owl. I think I was a night owl more in college, especially pulling those all-nighters, doing those mass practice study exams. I think that, you can still be productive either way, but I just think it's very interesting that, what they have found also kind of contributes to the idea to do what you can in the morning, do what you can to get those difficult tasks first. And if you are procrastinating, you're afraid of grit, take it one bite at a time, one step at a time, and I would say also hold yourself accountable. And maybe you have to talk with someone. Maybe you have to go to therapy and talk with someone about your fears, talk with a loved one, talk with someone that you trust to figure out how you can get over those hurdles of, what success really is like. I think another reason why people are afraid of being successful is because with success also comes responsibility. I remember when I was finishing schooling at UF and, working on that last degree, that they were saying that, when you have a doctorate, there's just an expectation of you to be able to produce. Like, so it varies per person, of course, but there's still like this expectation that you will be able to deliver content and you will be an expert to speak on specific things regarding to your research. And so with that also comes like imposter syndrome, intimidation, fear of failure. There's like a lot of things. And so I can see some people kind of wanting to go on their turtle shell and hide out because they don't want to really deal with that. Right. So I just want to encourage all of you to just continue to move forward no matter what. Let's get back to this article here. So doing your most difficult tasks first and then limit your choices. So when you make a choice, use a little bit of willpower. So if you're, for instance, I know I went on a couple of different weight loss journeys and all this other stuff, trying to get fit, more muscle, all this stuff. And one thing I found is that, you can drink all the water in the world, but if portion control is not where it needs to be, it's going to fight against your decisions, right? And so I had to be intentional on, okay, I'm going to use portion control. I'm going to use more water here. I'm going to trade out that smoothie for water. I'm going to, drink half of a smoothie, like, just like making these like little side deals with myself. And I think that many of us have been there. We can connect to that. So they're saying to limit your choices. So it says here, create habits, set up systems, follow routines, automate little things so that you have more energy for big ones. That's good. Then it says here, do hard things. So willpower is like a muscle. Just like a muscle, it needs exercise to get stronger. So doing hard things, it increases your capacity for doing hard things. Okay. So what's more, willpower is strengthened not only by tackling those big goals, but also by doing anything that gets your brain out of its comfort zone. So using your left hand instead of your right hand, working on your posture throughout the day, trying to stop swearing, they all have shown to increase your overall stamina. So I guess what they're saying when they're saying to do hard things, what they're saying is challenge your mindset, challenge yourself, challenge waking up at 30 minutes earlier, an hour earlier, being productive when you wake up, like making yourself do stuff. And that's what's going to really strengthen your willpower. Like I said, with portion control, trying to eat all fruits and veggies and water, and just challenging yourself with that something. But if you're a student and you're trying to be more gritty and to overcome a fear of grit, then I would say to definitely go towards the route of having accountability and then setting at least 5 to 10 goals for yourself compared to maybe no goals before, or maybe 2 at max. I would start strengthening those goals and then really trying to pursue some of those bigger goals and not really trying to sabotage them or not having an imposter syndrome and then backing away from the table, but to really go for it anyway. So they're talking about mindset, which of course we've spoken about Dr. Carol Dweck and her her research around 2 types of mindset. There's fixed mindset and growth mindset. It says here, people with a fixed mindset, they have a talent. They believe that talent is innate and no amount of effort will help someone get better. And we know that this has been proven to be inaccurate, right? And then people with a growth mindset believe that talents and abilities can be developed through hard work and feedback. So just right here, mindset is key for when you're accomplishing gritty tasks and you're trying to make things happen. You have to have optimism and a growth mindset. You have to have a positive sense of self-efficacy. And I talk about all this. If you are coming to the table half empty, right? And you just can't see hope on the other side of the tunnel, I would say to really step away from the table and to really reevaluate your mindset so that you can, get to where you need to be so that you can truly accomplish the task at hand. I mean, there's nothing sadder than having so much potential, but then being locked in with a fixed mindset. And unfortunately, we'll have students that also feel that way. Like, oh, I could graduate, but, I've never seen anyone in my family do it. Or, I could go to college, but, I don't really have the money. And I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be an inconvenience. So I'd rather just, settle and take a job, I think it's time for us to really reevaluate those mindsets, right? And figure out where are we on that spectrum regarding fixed mindset, growth mindset. Are there areas in your life, that there are fixed mindsets? It's just you've tackled something for years and you're like, I just can't get it. Like, what can you do different? Like, have you been able to journal this process out? Have you been able to come up with a strategy, a plan? How are you trying to be gritty? I really hope, especially as educators, that, if there's something and it's just like this brick wall, and I just can't overcome it. I highly recommend that you take a step away from the table, reevaluate, and see how can you be as gritty as possible, helping your students overcome a fear of success and overcome a fear of failure while you yourself are doing the same, because I think that, as we are here and as we're evolving and the school year is wrapping up, there's still so much potential for us to accomplish great things. So I want to encourage you guys with that. And so with that said, we'll get right back into this article and see what the next type of grit is and what they wanted to share with us. So they're saying here, it talks about coder. It says to recommend listing out all skills that you have right now big or small. This is beautiful because sometimes you feel like, oh, I don't even really have a skill set. I don't really have anything, but you really do. And so when you start even with the little things, like it said there, like, can you cook an omelet? Can you boil an egg? Like, what are your skill sets? And then looking over that and then deconstruct each skill. How did you learn that skill? How bad were you when you first started it? Or how long did it take for you to get decent at it? So then it says here, contemplate those universals underlying your personal learning process, and then recognize that you do have the capacity to grow. You did it before, and you can do it again. This reminds me of, so I remember I was a part of a community event with a church, and we had to bring in, it was like a potluck, we had to bring in dishes. So I was very new at cooking, and I wanted to make baked homemade mac and cheese. Listen, it was horrible. And my friends were nice, like they ate it, but I knew it was horrible. Listen, for those that know how to make homemade baked mac and cheese, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, just listen to the formula. So I had pasta, I made pasta, and then I had a bunch of cheese that I just melted. And I put some butter on the pasta, put it in a pan, and then I just put cheese on top. That was it. And I put salt and pepper and put it in the oven. So when people ate it, they were like, it looked good at first, right? They're like, oh, this is gonna be good. But when they ate it, they were like, whoa, there's so much missing. Like, where's the egg? Where's either the cream cheese, the sour cream? Where are the seasonings, right? Where's the, whatever, crumble on top, like whatever. Like everyone that makes mac and cheese, you know what time it is. If you don't have egg and you don't have all these other things and you're trying to bake mac and cheese, I mean, like that Southern soul food type of mac and cheese, it's just not, it's not gonna be a good cookout. But that was the first time I made it. I made a huge tray of it, and it was a huge error, but it was kind of funny. I mean, my friends, they laugh. They're very supportive. But now, hey, now I know how to make homemade mac and cheese with practice, with being more optimistic, with taking away that fear of, what if it actually turns out good? Or what if I fail again? What if I burn the pasta? Like all these fears, I had to put those to the side so that I could be gritty and succeed in my goal of being able to make homemade mac and cheese. So now I'm very confident at being able to make homemade mac and cheese. And I'm very grateful for my friends that had so much compassion and supported me through those hard times. So it just makes me think of that. When they're saying, look at your traits and see what are you good at, what are you still need practice and work on, and just don't be so hard on yourself, right? Just take it one day at a time. Now let's keep going. Talking about the second part of grit here, it says to have the grit to control your thoughts, right? And it says, we're our biggest critic, right? And so it says that, that little voice in your head, it'll tell you to give up whenever you face a setback. It tells you that your efforts are pointless and that you could spend time doing something else. This is huge, right? It can tell you just don't have the time, you're too tired, all this, right? So when we listen to those negative thoughts, our stress levels do increase and they bring on more negative thoughts. It's a vicious cycle that we have to break if we want to be successful. So Kotler is talking about 3 ways to develop your grit to control your thoughts as you're trying to, of course, overcome a fear of success and all this other stuff. So it says, for one, you want to replace negative self-talk with positive self-talk. This is everything, guys. There's a book called The Power of Speaking Positive. I highly recommend it. And so it says, we have a complete guide to shutting down those negative thoughts in your head right here. That's pretty good. So check out them when you get a chance. This is called www.artofmanliness.com. Okay. So artofmanliness.com. And so they're talking here to replace negative self-talk with positive self-talk. Then they say, cultivate gratitude. Very huge. Very huge. Being thankful helps you with that optimism. And they talk about having a gratitude journal. Beautiful. And then they say here to place mindfulness practice mindfulness meditation. So when you're doing that, you're learning to be aware of your thoughts, but not reactive or judgmental about them. Okay. And then you can see that there's a gap between the moments from when you have a thought and the moment that your brain attaches an emotion to that thought. So you're being mindful with that meditation. And then the third one here is the grit to master fear, which is what we've really been kind of tiptoeing around this entire podcast. So it says, learning to harness fear in this way really comes down to exposure. Regularly force yourself to take risks, powerful, right? Build up your tolerance over time, and then notice how fear manifests in your body without freaking out about it. Learn to welcome the energy producing, excitement generating feeling and even relish it. So you might be afraid of whatever, being successful, getting compliments, whatever. Learn to accept the feeling that comes with success and relish it. And so now that leads us into the next thing, the grit to be your best, even when you're at your worst. Okay. So it talks about the grit that matters is learning to be your best when you're at your worst. This really is the difference between elite level performers and everyone else. And this kind of goes with my theme of life coming in cycles. Yes, it comes in cycles. You will have ups and downs. You're going to have to decide to be successful anyway, right? And so it says, the way you develop this kind of grit is to train and practice under circumstances that are more difficult than ones that you're actually able to face in reality. So they give an example here of Navy SEALs, Navy SEALs, like they may never be pushed as hard as their actual missions, right? But going through the crucible, they know that they should SHTF. They can continue to operate at a high level. So I'm sure everybody that is in that field knows exactly what he's talking about. So, then he talks about the grit to train your weakness. So when you're working on your strengths instead of your weaknesses, that's great for your personal development. Spend more time tending to flowers that will simply choke the weeds off with their growth. Okay. Very interesting. So this is going to keep going, and we can talk about grit all day. But for the sake of time, I'm going to get back to you guys and stop sharing my screen. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning into the Grit and Equity Talks podcast with yours truly, Dr. India White. And you can reach this podcast episode on the X Factor EDU network with Dr. Matthew Joseph. And I hope that you guys will tune in over there and see all of the great episodes and all the things that we've got, going on at the X Factor EDU network. I also wanted to remind you guys, when you get a chance, please swing on over and follow me on social media. So if you came in late, you could follow me in my social media channels. I've got Facebook is Miss India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. LinkedIn is The India White. Instagram is Indy238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. And Threads is Indy238. Also, when you get a chance, check me out at some of these upcoming events, whether at the Savas Conference in Vegas in May, if you're at the FCTM in June, at Camps Conference in July, or NCSM or NCTM, I'll be there to see you, or in Iowa at the ICTM in October. Come and say hello, share your love. I'm waiting for you. Also, I wanted to remind you guys to check out my website whenever you get a chance. I've got a lot of good things cooking over there for you. And I hope that we can connect however best fit to work with you. I'm here to serve. So keep me in the loop, okay? As different opportunities come up and you're wanting to connect, I'll be here for you, okay? So with that said, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Grit and Equity Talks with Dr. India White. And until next time, stay gritty. See ya.